This is a moment in Jewish history. The Olympics are taking place this year in Paris, France, and that's an opportunity to discuss Olympic athletes in Israel, which started with the Maccabi sports clubs and the Maccabiah Games. Jews in Europe historically did not really have the opportunity to join in sports associations or participate in athletic competitions, so they formed their own. In 1895, Jewish Germans and Austrians living in Constantinople, Turkey, formed the Israelite Gymnastic Association Constantinople. This was after they had been rejected from participating in other sports clubs. Then came Hagibor in Bulgaria, Bar Kokhba Berlin in Germany, and others. The idea of Jewish athleticism really took off when Dr. Max Nordau gave his famous speech at the Second Zionist Congress held in 1898 in Basel, Switzerland. He came up with the term Muskeljuden, or Muscular Jews. Nordau stated, "Gymnastics and physical training are exceedingly important for us Jews. The more Jews achieve in the various branches of sports, the greater will be their self-confidence and self-respect." He stressed a return to the Jews in the days of yore, like Judah Maccabee and Shimon Bar Kokhba, whom he called a hero who refused to know defeat. In a follow-up article, Nordau wrote, "There used to be such a Judaism, but they turned the ghetto Jewry of the Middle Ages into a poor people, emaciated and helpless. Now the anguish has fallen. No one will stop us from engaging in our physical recovery. We will renew our youth for our old age, and with broad chest, strong limbs, and bold look, we will be warriors. For us Jews, sport has an extra educational importance. We need to heal not only in body but also in spirit, and this should give us confidence. Before our eyes, a new, healthy Hebrew child is growing up. Hebrew sports branches will flourish." And they did flourish. At the Fourth Zionist Congress, held in 1903, a group of 35 gymnasts from a variety of countries gave an impressive display. A group called the Yiddische Turnerschaft, or Union of Jewish Gymnastic Clubs, grew to a membership of over 1,500, and by 1913 there were over 100 clubs with several thousand members. World War I halted all that. But after the war, the Maccabi World Union was formed and the idea of a Jewish Olympics formulated. It was the brainchild of Yosef Yekutieli. Born in Russia, he immigrated to the land of Israel in his youth, where he played soccer for Maccabi Tel Aviv. During World War I, he, like most Jews, faced the prospect of either being drafted into the Turkish army or being deported from the land of Israel. He was conscripted into teaching physical education at the headquarters of the Mujahideen, or jihad fighters. Then he was transferred to be a Turkish-German interpreter, and then exiled to Turkey along with other Jews. Finally, World War I ended and he returned to the land of Israel, where he promoted his idea for a Jewish Olympics at the Maccabi World Union. Yekutieli enlisted the support of another organization he founded, the Israeli Football Association, and he raised money to build Maccabiah Stadium in Tel Aviv from Jewish communities around the world. By this time, the Turkish were gone, and Great Britain controlled the land of Israel, and the High Commissioner for Palestine, Sir John Chancellor, refused to approve their request for the games to be held. The first Maccabiah Games were not held until a new British commissioner was appointed, Sir Arthur Grenfell Wauchope. Agreement was contingent upon the Jews allowing Arabs and British athletes to compete as well. A Jewish motorcycle brigade set off for a tour of the land of Israel and Europe to promote the Games. The motorbike tour was generally successful, except for one interesting incident while in Poland. Here's a Jewish telegraphic agency report from April 1930. 20 Jews and Christians were arrested and a number injured here yesterday after somebody threw a stone at the Jewish motorcyclists from Tel Aviv, Palestine, while the latter were parading through the Warsaw streets and receiving great ovations from the assembled mass. Hundreds of autos and motorcycles had waited on the outskirts of the city of Warsaw for the arrival of the Tel Aviv cyclists who were returning from Antwerp. When the latter arrived, they were formally greeted in the city by representatives of the Zionist Central Committee and various sports organizations, accompanied by an orchestra. A parade then started through the streets of Warsaw. A stone was thrown at the cyclists when the procession reached one street. The cyclist was hit by the stone and then struck back at his attacker, who is believed to be a member of the Polish Anti-Semitic National Democratic Party, and a free-for-all fight ensued. The police arrived on the scene and forbade the parade to continue. The Jewish motorcyclists of Tel Aviv, before their arrival in Warsaw yesterday, had toured many Polish cities and towns, receiving everywhere enthusiastic reception. In one town, officially greeted by the mayor. Finally, in 1932, the first Maccabiah Games were held in Tel Aviv, then called the Maccabiad. There were 500 athletes from 23 different countries. Here is a report from the JTA dated March 1932. Tel Aviv is in brilliant holiday mood today for the opening of the World Maccabiah Jewish Sports Festival. Houses, shops, and cars are decorated with the Zionist flags and the Maccabean symbols. The Hebrew papers hail the Maccabiad in their editorials as encouraging Palestine Jewry and all Jewry in these hard times. The torchlight procession organized by the Palestine Maccabee organization was held last night in Tel Aviv in honor of the thousands of visitors who have arrived from all over the world to attend. A big reception attended by over 5,000 people was held afterwards at Beth Am, at which the mayor of Tel Aviv and others from the Jewish Agency executive, including Miss Henrietta Zold, spoke in welcome. The leaders of the Palestine Maccabi stated that by physical strength and love for Palestine, all Jewish difficulties will be overcome. Mrs. Ben Jehuda, the widow of the famous Hebrew lexicographer, has given to the Maccabi World Organization the Silver Cup, which was presented by the American Young Judea Organization to the late Mr. Eliezer Ben Yehuda, and the cup will be awarded to the winner of the present World Maccabiad. 5,000 members of the Maccabi marched in procession through the streets of Tel Aviv, headed by the mayor of Tel Aviv, Mr. Meir Dizengoff, riding on horseback. About 30,000 people lined the roads, cheering the procession as it passed. Among the athletes who competed were Abraham Kurland, an Olympic athlete from Denmark who won a gold medal in wrestling. Nicholas Herschel of Austria won a gold medal in Greco-Roman wrestling. Pavel Steiner from Czechoslovakia won 3 gold medals in swimming, as did Hedy Bienenfeld in the women's swimming competition. And in fencing, Shaul Moyal of Egypt won a medal. American Jews won 12 gold medals in track and field, including Harry Schneider from New York and Sybil Tabachnikov Cooper. Many of these athletes and spectators decided to stay in the land of Israel. Things were getting tense in Europe with a new political party called the Nazis growing in Europe. The success of the Games led to the creation of the Eretz Yisrael Olympic Committee in 1933, which was accepted by the official Olympics Committee and invited to participate in the 1936 Olympics, which were to be held in Nazi Germany. Many of the athletes scheduled to compete could not because they were Jewish, and the Nazis adhered to the Aryan Clause. Others refused in protest because of what the Nazis were doing. The second Maccabiah Games took place in 1935, with over 1,300 athletes from 26 countries, a large increase from the first one. The British opposed the Games, but they were able to take place anyway, and many new sports were added, including judo, cycling, weightlifting, rowing, and volleyball, as well as motorcycle racing. Again, many chose to stay in Israel rather than return to Europe. The third Maccabiah Games were scheduled for 1938, but the British canceled them. They did not want illegal immigration from Europe. And then came World War II. The third Maccabiah Games did not take place until after the State of Israel became independent from the British. In 1950, the third Maccabiah was finally held at the newly inaugurated Ramat Gan Stadium. Yosef Yekutieli, the originator of the Maccabiah idea, and his wife Yehudit were honored. Here's an article from the JTA from 1950. The largest crowd of people ever to gather in one stadium in the history of modern Israel yesterday afternoon attended the solemn, ceremonious opening of the Third World Maccabiah at Ramat Gan, a Tel Aviv suburb. Some 40,000 spectators cheered as teams from 17 nations marched past the reviewing stand in the stadium, completed barely an hour before the opening of the Jewish Olympics. The delegates stood at attention while a youthful Maccabi girl recited a poem in honor of the men and women who died in Israel's War of Liberation. The torch had been lighted yesterday at Modin, the site of the beginning of the Maccabi revolt against the Greco-Syrians over 2,500 years ago, and has been carried by a relay of runners across the country to the stadium and placed on the reviewing platform where it will burn throughout the games. In his address, Premier David Ben-Gurion declared, "The nation's pioneers have established Israel's independence, repulsed and defeated her numerous enemies, and flung open the gates of the country to the entire nation wherever it is to be found. But they have only begun. The road to complete redemption is long and hard. They call to every young Jew who is inspired to pioneer the wastelands, to every Jewish businessman who is able to participate in constructive enterprises, to every Jewish scientist who aspires toward research in fields of nature and of thought, to arise and come." Since then, every 4 years, the Maccabiah has taken place and grown into a respected event that is looked forward to by Jewish athletes around the world. And the Israeli Olympic team competes as well, as they are competing this year. But that's a story for another time. This has been a moment in Jewish history. For questions or comments and past shows, you can visit benbresky.substack.com. Thank you to all the listeners, and shalom.